Welcome to Mr. Wizard's Workshop, episode 20, the chaos of productivity improvement. Are you burned out with trying to decide what becoming more productive actually means for you and how the heck to actually do it? Do you feel a little bit overwhelmed with all the different productivity tips, techniques, recommendations, and hacks that are out there? Then stay tuned. In this week's episode, I'm going to tell you about a productivity framework, which I use to structure and organize my daily work. It's a simple but powerful productivity funnel. So I learned this pattern from the work of Cal Newport. He's a computer science professor at Georgetown University, New York Times bestselling author, regular contributor to New Yorker, New York Times, and Wired, frequent guest on NPR, a very prolific blogger on the subject of productivity for a long time, and a really smart guy. I'll post the link to his blog in the description of this week's video. So this is a picture of the pattern that we're going to talk about. He calls it productivity funnel, and it's 3 layers. Top layer is activity selection. Second layer is organization. And then the third layer is execution. And I'm going to dive down into more detail for each of those. So a little housekeeping first. I am going to explain and describe each of those levels of productivity. So stay tuned. Have the live attendees on mute. You can always drop any questions or comments you might have along the way into the Q&A. And at the end of the presentation, I'll check the Q&A box. And if there's any questions or interest in having further discussion, I'll open the floor up for a lively discussion. So as a successful IT project manager for many years, I was already plugged into and geeked out over productivity tools, techniques, processes, and hacks. This framework helped me to become even more intentional about my productivity practices and to let go of things which work well in IT project management but weren't optimum or directly applicable for me in my new role as a business coach and a solopreneur. So it crystallized my big picture thinking about productivity, provided me with a lens to select, organize, and execute the activities that are most important for me. And I believe this framework can do the same for you. So what the productivity funnel is, it's a powerful design pattern. So just like design patterns in software development, business patterns allow you to reuse tried and proven mechanisms and approaches. So patterns in general explicitly capture expert knowledge and design trade-offs and make this expertise available to you. They provide tested, proven paradigms. I have a dozen different software design pattern books in my computer science library, and I made extensive use of them during my long career in IT. So this is a business design pattern. Another name for that would be a business framework. So business frameworks help you analyze business issues and structure how you think about and approach a solution. If you're an entrepreneur, I assume that you think of productivity as a positive thing, even if you sometimes struggle with getting it right. But if you think that the concept of productivity is an exploitative capitalist plot to maximize output and oppress the workers of the world, I want to give you a kinder, gentler definition of productivity, also from Cal Newport, along with, I think, a tongue-in-cheek quote from him that I found amusing. So in the most general sense, productivity is about navigating from a large constellation of possible things you could be doing to the actual execution of a much smaller number of things each day. So this is the amusing quote from Cal. In a post-capitalistic collectivist utopia where work is optional, and we've excised our souls of past bourgeois internalization of the narratives of production, this is the key thought, we'll still have things we need to get done, and having an organizational system will still be better than haphazardly trying to keep track of all those things in our minds. So if you ignore or shun productivity, you end up adrift in the sea of life, aimless, driven solely by the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of momentary pleasures. If you embrace it, you can cultivate a deep and meaningful life, a life with purpose and significance. So let's start with the premise that productivity is a good thing, and thus a haphazard approach to getting your shit done is not optimum. That is, executing in the moment whatever grabs your attention as interesting or unavoidably urgent and running away from what you don't want to deal with. But there are a dizzying array of options, tools, techniques, recommendations, and choices out there. And it seems like an unending appetite for ever more content on the subject. It's like porn for entrepreneurs. If you Google productivity, you could be reading blog posts, articles, and free PDFs for literally the rest of your life. If you search Amazon books on the subject, it would take you a couple of hours just to browse through the list of titles. And there are literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of YouTube videos available for you to watch and ponder over, including, of course, this one. So the top level is activity selection. That's where you identify your universe of possible goals and activities and determine which activities to actually commit to accomplishing. Having a written vision statement for your business and defining your quarterly goals and periodically reviewing and updating those gives you a good starting point for this. So I use the ideas and concepts from the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, as the primary tool for my decision-making process at this level. And I highly recommend the book. I'm going to dedicate a whole episode in the future to reviewing and discussing the key concepts of this book, but let me give you a quick description in a nutshell to pique your interest. So the book gives you a simple approach to thinking about productivity based primarily around one question. And that helps you to have less clutter, distractions, and stress, and more focus, energy, and success. So the second level is organization. Once committed, your selected activities still need to go through some processing, organization, and stories. That is planning, mapping, and processing your task. This would include breaking down your big rocks to small rocks, estimating, and scheduling. Two basic goals for this level of the funnel. Number one, to avoid forgetting what you're supposed to do. Two, to make smart decisions about what to work on next. And then the third level is execution. So this final level focuses on the actual execution of whatever it is you figured out you should be doing in the moment. That is actually doing it and doing it effectively. This includes how you plan your day, the rituals you put in place to support your efforts, and the processes you deploy to support or effective collaboration with others. Relevant ideas for this level can be found in the book Deep Work, also by Cal Newport. So why define the whole concept of productivity with this level of detail? Well, by clearly delineating 3 different levels, you can make sure that each level gets at least some of your attention. It helps to avoid the common mistake of focusing on one part of the funnel while avoiding or ignoring others. I've known people who are obsessive about their depth rituals, execution, but are constantly forgetting or losing track of what's on their plate, organization level. And I've known productivity geeks with complex or over complex organizational systems who pay very little attention to their actual overall workload, the selection level, and end up hopelessly overwhelmed. So like any good frameworks or patterns, this funnel is descriptive, not prescriptive. It's a guide for selecting and implementing a Goldilocks level, not too much, not too level, of the productivity practices which work well for you. By clearly delineating the 3 different levels, you can make sure that you give each level the proper amount of attention. So your action item for this week, decide which of the 3 levels are you currently strongest in, and which of the 3 levels you need to focus some more attention on. For me, I could do a little bit better in level 1. My rock execution, I'm very solid in organization, but I don't invest probably quite as much time and energies as I should in reviewing and honing my big picture vision and goals, and then trickling that down through the other 2 levels. So if you found this video useful, you know what to do. If you know someone who would enjoy the video, please send them the link. And if you have any questions, please post them. I always respond to posts. I'm going to post the link to Cal Newport's blog, a link to the book, The One Thing, and a link to the book, Deep Work, in the description of this week's recording. And if you aren't already registered for this free weekly workshop, then you're invited to register. So each week I feature instantly actionable steps that you can take to double your productivity, overcome procrastination, and get your shit done. Just hit the link in the description of this week's recording to register. And I'm now going to open up the floor for questions and discussions, if there is any.